Hi, everybody. Hi, Miriam.
Hello.
I am Jordan. I'm the manager of product and customer experience here at Arbor. And as part of Canadian Climate Week, we're hosting a webinar today on a leader's guide to Scope 3. I'm joined here with Ben, who's a co-founder and the chief technology officer at Arbor. And we also have Miriam here, who's the co-founder and senior apparel and textile sustainability strategist at Collective Detour.
Hi.
So thanks both so much for being here today to talk with us. Feel free to drop in the chat as well who you are and what you're hoping to get out of the webinar today. But with that, I'll pass it over to Ben for a little bit more of an introduction.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar. My name, as Jordan mentioned, is Ben Grandy. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and then one of the co-founders of Arbor. We started Arbor about 4 or 5 years ago. And when we started out, I was really passionate about data and what you could do with it, as well as making a difference in the world. So I have about 10 years of experience in software development. And I really love bringing that to the table to help the world progress in terms of GHG emissions as well as overall environmental sustainability.
Thank you. Hi. Do you want me to do an intro as well?
Sure, that'd be great, Miriam.
Oh, okay. Well, I see that I should update my bio. I've been in the apparel industry for almost 30 years now. And the last 15 has been entirely focused on sustainability and textile circularity. And we met last year because I like to say that the 21st century is the century of transparency, and more apparel brands and manufacturers will be asked to give more transparency and traceability. And we were looking for a partner to help us do that. And that's how we met. And thank you so much for having us and giving the apparel industry, to have a voice today in that webinar.
Absolutely. Please feel free to drop questions, comments, anything in the chat as we go along. We'd be happy to address them as we go along or at the very end. I want to start out today talking a little bit about what the pressures are for reporting and decarbonization, why companies are doing this, and why it all matters. When we're talking to companies, some of them absolutely are doing sustainability for its core values to really try and make their company as sustainable as possible. But a lot of them have other priorities as well. And these factor into why they should care about decarbonization, around climate reporting, and around doing this in the best possible way they can. Typically, when we're talking to companies, we hear different things like my customers requesting that I do this, or that they are mandated to report this under a specific jurisdiction. Some of the companies that we talk to are either privately or publicly held, and they have some shareholder value that they need to drive. The shareholders are asking for this information, or it helps differentiate them amongst the other peers in their category. It's also fantastic for employee acquisition and retention. Your employees are humans and they care about what they're putting out into the world. And the way that they do that a lot of the times, 8 hours out of the day, is by working for your company. And so being able to showcase what you're doing to make a difference can really go a long way. This all leads to a bunch of different requirements for your business. This can be different scope 1, 2, and 3 reporting or organizational reporting. A lot of the time, it also leads to target setting. So a lot of customers are requiring that their suppliers are setting targets in accordance with the Science-Based Targets Initiative, and then actually measuring and meeting those targets over time so that they can also meet their targets. It also leads to product carbon footprinting. And what we'll kind of go through today is how all of these different things are actually very closely linked together and can actually be done simultaneously to deliver a lot of value for within the organization. Scope 3 is a huge part of this. When we take a look at an organization's entire product carbon footprint, Scope 3 is so important, especially for any product-based businesses. What we typically find is that scope 3 makes up greater than 3/4 of a company's emissions, and oftentimes a lot more than this. And then within that scope 3, there is a category called purchase goods and services, which, especially for product-based businesses, makes up 90 to 95% of their overall organizational footprint. And so you can imagine how important it is to focus on this category. Not only helps you be able to really focus on what's going to move the needle, but also allows you to find different opportunities to be able to decarbonize within that. Within this, there are a bunch of different ways that you as an organization can measure your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. But specifically within scope 3, there's typically 3 that we take a look at. On the lowest quality side of things, there is what we call spend-based emissions. So taking a look at your financial ledgers and using different spend-based emission factors to be able to estimate what the carbon footprint looks like for that. There are a lot of pros and cons with this approach. I'd say that the biggest pros is that it's very easy to do. You can take a look at your existing financial records and then use it to calculate your overall emissions. But you start to see cons when it comes to long-term compliance and long-term requirement meeting, as well as figuring out how to decarbonize strategically. If the only way that you're measuring your emissions is based off of spend, then the only way to reduce them is also to reduce spend, which as a growing business doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Moving upwards along the data granularity scale here, we have activity-based averages. These are typically regional or global averages for a specific activity. Requires a little bit more work in terms of data collection. You need to know how much you're purchasing rather in terms of quantity or some sort of units, like if you're driving kilometers, if you are purchasing materials, something like pounds or kilograms. And so it requires a little bit more work, but it also gives you a lot more granularity into what you're purchasing and provides a little bit better of a long-term way of being able to measure these emissions. What most organizations should strive for, and it is a challenge, so by no means saying that you need to meet these today, but you really want to get down to your supplier-specific emission factors. These are going to provide you the best opportunities to be able to take a look into your supply chain, into your overall operations, and identify where your emissions are coming from. And that's going to allow you to be able to decarbonize with the highest ROI. We'll go into some examples a little bit later in this webinar, just to show how powerful supplier-specific data can be.
And Ben, quick question on that. Can you provide any examples of when a company could use a spend-based approach or when they should maybe be considering more of a supplier-specific?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the times when we're working with businesses, what we recommend is we start out with spend-based. We come in, we just take a look at where their overall emissions are to be able to showcase just how powerful it could be if you move towards supplier-specific. As we kind of go through this exercise of taking a look at where the overall emissions are within the organization, we identify what are called hotspots, which is where the majority of your emissions are made. And a lot of the time, this leads to showing that supplier-specific emission factors are really going to move the needle in terms of data granularity. Additionally, if the only mandate is to report and you're not really looking to decarbonize, it might be okay to stick with spend-based for a little bit longer term. But again, those regulations are constantly increasing over time. And with different partnerships like the one recently released by the GHG protocol and the ISO standards, it's going to be really important to get down to a product and company consolidation between emission factors. There are a ton of benefits with taking a product-based approach to this. Really, for product-based businesses, that supplier-specific really means just taking a look at what your products are made up of, who you're working with throughout the supply chain, and the entire life cycle of that product. Really helps you as a business be future fit for future compliances. Like I just mentioned, there's a recent partnership with the GHG protocol and the ISO standard body, where they're working together to be able to consolidate product level emissions with the organizational level to really increase data accuracy over time. Second major benefit that we see over and over again is allowing companies to actually reduce the amount of spend on decarbonization and reporting. If you can kill two birds with one stone, you can actually reduce the amount of time that you're spending through that continuous data collection cycle, where you have to collect data, standardize it, calculate it, report on it over and over again. If you take a consolidated approach to that, you're really able to reduce spend on that reporting. And if you're able to get better data insights throughout your supply chain, you're also able to identify some really unique opportunities to decarbonize. We have a couple of different use cases that I'm happy to share after this webinar of companies that we've helped be able to reduce their emissions by taking a look at that supply chain. And they're able to do this in a much more effective way than if they were to take a look at, say, their scope 1 and 2 in a lot of cases. The third benefit that a lot of companies will see with taking a products-based approach is reusability across data needs. And I'll go into this in a second here, but what this means is the same data that you're collecting on your products can be used to feed up into your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. It can also be used to feed into your customers' scope 3 emissions based off of what they're purchasing. And there's a ton more that you can do with it, like the new extended producer or EPR regulations that are coming out across the world, using the same data to be able to report on that. This is a fairly complicated graph to look at here, but what you can see if you take a look at it is the different organizational environmental footprints along with the product ones and then your customers. The life cycle of a product typically goes through the same steps. There's the raw materials that go into it, the manufacturing to turn it from the raw materials into the finished product, the transportation and the distribution to get it from that final product to the retailing location or directly to your customer. Then there's a little bit of time that it spends in storage or in retailing. And then there's the entire use phase and end of life of the product. And what we see when we take a look at these is each one of these can be directly attributed to either your scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions, which makes it really beneficial to be able to collect this data and then report that back up into your overall organizational footprint. A lot of the times, customers are starting to move towards asking for product carbon footprints in their vendor screening questionnaire. So the large businesses of the world are really moving towards this, asking their suppliers to start providing product-specific emissions. And the reason that they're doing this is so that they're able to actually use this data to report on their scope 3, as well as to showcase that decarbonization over time. So they're expecting that when they receive these numbers, they might be higher today, but over time, they're either hoping to work with you or even choose you over some of the other suppliers that they have access to be able to reduce their scope 3 emissions. So as you can imagine, there's a huge opportunity in this space. With that, I'll pass it over to Miriam to talk a little bit about some communication around this and how you can communicate some of the emissions once you've actually collected them.
Yes, thank you. Well, let's talk about greenwashing. You know, at the moment, there's absolutely no company that is perfect. You know, even if you are a B Corp certification company, which is one, I think, of the best certification that you can have, you have to start somewhere and then you improve. So you have to be really careful with your messaging. And right now, there's too many vague messaging. Oh, this is an eco-friendly material. Sure. What does that mean? And if you want to show it and to be really transparent about it, you need data. And I think one of the reasons greenwashing is happening so much, it's because we are missing exact data for like in real time for individual product. It's easy to say, okay, sure, all my t-shirts are in organic cotton, so I'm an eco-friendly company. It's just a step that you have done. To be a very totally eco-friendly company, we're not there yet. We will need more regulations to achieve that. And unfortunately, right now, clothes are selling and cheap clothes are selling. Just to give you an idea, in 2000, we were manufacturing 50 billion units of clothing. In 2015, we were at 100 billion units of clothing. And to 25, we feel we are at about 150 billion. So it's just going up and going up and going up. So brands are not feeling that much the pressure to be eco or green. And when we speak with many brands in our network, they're like, well, we tried that eco-friendly collection and they didn't care, they didn't want to pay more. So how can you help consumer understanding why you're paying more? It's with data and accurate data. So to decrease greenwashing, a software like I say Arbor is one of the best thing to do to start somewhere. And I want also to talk about greenwashing. What is greenwashing? It's the brands that are just, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be that people critique my brand if I'm not doing it right. It's not as it's like not as worse. It's as worse as greenwashing. We have to jump and we have to do something. So audits are being asked more and more, and governments will eventually ask for transparency. And I like to compare it to the food industry. Right now, when you buy food, you need to know all the ingredients, all of it. Back in the day, we used to eat trans fat all the time. We can't anymore. So it's going to happen for the fashion industry. I would say that in 10 to 25 years, you will be asked as a brand in the apparel and textile industry to be entirely transparent. So I like to say 10 years, but I'll play it safe with 25 years so people do not stress out. But if you haven't started anything yet, you'll be late. You'll be really late. And when the consumer turns and decides that they want transparency, even if you used to have amazing sales, it can drop very fast. So I think it's really important, to calculate, especially in the scope 3, which, you just showed that 95% of the impact is there. But in the apparel and textile industry, we do have the longest supply chain. There's no other supply chain that is as long and as complex. We deal with many types of fabric. There's percentage, 50% polyester, 25% polyester, recycled, not recycled, made from natural component. We see that a lot. So how can we move towards a more transparent and traceable product? This is why it's so important to have exact data. That's all good enough. So one of the solution, of course, is circularity. We've been talking about circularity, and this is an amazing graphic that comes from the new circular design toolkit made by the CCTC and FTA. I just wanted to show you how complex the supply chain is, and we need to go to a circular model to decrease our impact for sure. So recycled fiber are important, and in the demo we'll show that. We'll have what's the difference between recycled polyester and polyester, and all of these different fabrics. So that's why we need, to move towards this type of data for sure. How to start? Okay, yes, how to start. So if you're watching and you're like, oh, it's too big, and most of brands, and not just in apparel, the sustainability department is most of the time just one person. So it's a big endeavor to take over. So where do you start? Start with your best sellers, your basics. What is the fabric that you're selling the most? What is the fabric that is that, I don't know, 50% of your collection? Start with that and get that data. You don't have to do all the SKU at once. You don't have to invest tons of money at first. You need to start somewhere, get the data, and then you're like, okay, and it can be simpler than you think. That's the other thing we should talk. You see it that as that big like mountain to climb to become sustainable, but when you have exact data and when you have a software that you just try, okay, if I just change that fabric, if I go from cotton to organic cotton, what will be the impact? And you have it right away, and you see, you're like, oh my god, okay, my supplier has amazing organic cotton. I never wanted to make the switch. It's a bit more expensive, but if I reduce my impact of, I don't know, 13%, then I can talk to my consumer and say, hey, our basic t-shirts, they're going to be, I don't know, $3 more. This is why. And you can use that data to become more transparent and have a lesser impact, on our planet. So I think that's the first thing to do. So if you don't have a SKU in particular, just target the main fabric from your collections. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think just to jump in there, Miriam,
Yeah, go for it.
It's so beneficial to take a look at that fabric level too, because I would assume for a lot of brands and the brands that we've worked with, that they use that same fabric in one t-shirt that they use across all of their lines or across many of their lines. And so getting insights into that can be really helpful because you're not having to do it every single time. You're able to do it a few times for sure, but then reuse that as much as possible.
Exactly. And or you can maybe start with, I like to say that find what resonates the most with you. If for you it's water consumption, start with measuring the amount of water it takes to make that product, and then you can estimate, okay, what is waterless dyeing? How does it work? What does ozone washing make sense? Is it true that it's going to decrease the amount of water I'm going to use? Or energy, if my factory is powered by solar energy, is it true that it's going to decrease my impact? So you can go and measure that, and then you're going to have an idea. So you can start maybe not with a material, but just in a way of making your clothes. If you are a vegan company and you don't have animal products, and you of course have to deal with synthetic material, what is the best synthetic material? Because the minute you hear synthetic, it's plastic. And now we know plastic it's not good. It's horrible. We've been eating it. So what are the alternative now to plastic? And with the software, what's great, you can list as many fabric, as you can, and you can verify without making the sample. That's the thing. You don't have to make it a collection. You don't have to make samples of each fabric to know the impact of that fabric. You can start with a software, and then you make the choice. Okay, I'll make that sample. I'll try, I don't know, 1,000 units in that new fabric, and so you can do some tests without being too dramatic on a financial standpoint, because you want to be financially sustainable. We get that, but sustainability, it's about economics as well. It's about being durable, but everywhere. So we don't forget about that.
Yeah, no, those were some great points, Miriam. And do you have any tips for companies who maybe are thinking about circularity? What can they do today to start that journey and start looking into it?
Well, first of all, it starts with design. The circular design toolkit that is free. You can go on the FTA website, the CCTC. You have to start designing in a way that is recyclable. So the material that you choose, is that material recyclable? How long does it take to decompose? How much water does it take? All of this. So you need to make a pattern that is maybe transformable at the end of life. You want a material that is durable. If you create a piece of clothing that is eternal, you did a good job. That's what you want. You want to give your product the longest life as possible in their initial state. And then when you've used it too much, is it recyclable? Can I transform it with something? Find solution that it never, never, never ends up in the landfill. I know people can get overwhelmed with that, but I'm telling you, the solutions are there. What we're missing is to bring them to scale, and to do that, we need to start testing, and we need to know where our impact is the biggest. So you can start with that point. If you say, okay, this is like the polyester I use, this is what is like destroying the most. That's where my biggest impact is. So what is my alternative for polyester? And we'll see in the demo. Is it recycled polyester? Maybe not, because when you hear recycled polyester, most of the time it's not old polyester that has been made in new polyester. You use a plastic bottle to make polyester, and you heard about those polyester and plastic bottle for the past years, and at first we were really excited about it, like, oh yeah, we're using plastic bottles and we're going to make polyester. But guess what? We disrupted the recycling plastic chain, and it created problems. So at the end of the day, it's not a good solution. It's still plastic, and it's not good for the environment. I think the intention was there, and we will do mistakes still. We're still trying to figure it out. Sustainability it's not new, but at scale and the way we're talking about it, and the reason is we have access to communication like never. We never had that much access of communication. I used to make clothes by fax in Hong Kong, So it's another reality, the 21st century, and we cannot hide. So you have to move forward and take those actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. So do we go to the demo?
Yeah, we can jump into the demo for sure.
Yeah, you have to show the software, because I'm not a nerd, and I'm not tech. And I remember at first when we started, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And it's super user friendly. Let's talk about that. We need technology that are user friendly, because when you are a buyer, when you're a brand, you're working sometimes on 2, 3, 5 collection at the same time. I mean, not collection, but 5 season. You have stuff in your store that is on sale. You have the new collection who's just arrived. There's one in the warehouse. There's one for next year, and once so the industry is overwhelmed. And when you talk about adding something to their list, they're like, I can't. So we absolutely need user-friendly technology to make that happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are trying our best to make this as usable as possible for everybody in the industry, because we know how much of a challenge it is getting into this data. It's not super accessible. It's not super easy to understand at first glance. And so really trying as hard as we can to make this as accessible for people. Before we dive into these different items that we've prepped here, I just want to preface this by saying that at Arbor, we work with a ton of different companies across various different supply chains. Definitely a lot in the fashion, in the retail, apparel sectors, but also everything from medical equipment to packaging to even financial institutions. So if you're not necessarily an apparel brand watching today, we can dive into another demo at another point, and we're always happy at Arbor to give demos. But with that, maybe Miriam, I'll jump into this baseline cotton t-shirt. Maybe you can walk us through what the thought process is here.
Yes. Well, cotton is one of the most known fabric. Cotton consumes so much water, and but everybody works with cotton. We see less and less of it because cotton has been mixed with polyester, because it's cheaper when you do that, and it's more durable. Like a lot of people will say, and I used to say it, polyester is eternal. It takes 200 years to disappear from the landfill. So there's also that side, and it's really easy to care. It dries fast. It doesn't peel most of the time. So that's why we went for a regular cotton t-shirt that most of the people. So we entered. Maybe you can show if I start, what do I do? So
yeah, so taking a look at that, we have that regular cotton t-shirt there. We could also imagine maybe what does it look like if that was organic?
Yeah.
What does that do to the overall impact? And we can take a look at actual numbers to do this as well. In our platform, we have tens of thousands of different materials you can access as a brand to make these decisions. But taking a look at cotton versus organic cotton here, you can see a 30% decrease in this sample t-shirt just by making that one material swap. So there's a huge difference here that you can make by swapping from one material to a preferred material. We can also take a look at some other different materials here as well. So another one that you brought up, Miriam, before this webinar was polyester. And what does polyester look like throughout a supply chain? So you can see here a sample of just regular polyester leggings with a material composition mixed between polyester and nylon. And through this, we can actually take a look too at what does it look like if you were to use recycled polyester instead? What does that do to the overall impact? And I think you were shocked when I showed you this one, that it was only a 10% decrease. Why is that, Miriam?
It's better, but I would expect it to be like as much as the cotton one, for sure. So that's it. It shows that, and this one, I think it's the recycled polyester made from another material. It's not from virgin polyester that it has been made. So, and you see the region. If you want, that would be great if you can show how to enter, how does it start, how did you end up with that grid and all the information, because I think it's really good, the opportunity and that you can have, with the software. And what do you calculate?
Yeah, so for any of the materials in our database, you can actually go in and just select whatever region you're looking to model here. And if you have more information, you can actually dive into that material as well through our custom materials package. It's more on the pro side of things, but for those companies who really want to dive deeper into it and say that they're buying renewable energy and it's still in China, you can go in and actually model that within our software. And I'm happy to give anybody who's interested in that a demo at any point.
Yeah, that's the thing. The more information you have on your product, the better. And I think how you can make it a bit easier for yourself is integrate your supplier in it. Tell your supplier, hey, we're going to start measuring the impact of each of our product. So what is the origin of your material? But you can ask, what is the origin of your thread? What is the origin of, are you dyeing, are you harvesting the cotton in India and then having it thread in China? So it has an impact. If the cotton is from China, thread in China, it has a different impact than if it travels. And there's an amazing video on YouTube, like the life of a t-shirt, and it travels so much. I think it travels into 5 countries before it comes on the shelves. So you can add all of this information, and I think it's great. Maybe we could go to the dress. I think the dress was good. We asked, okay, what has the more impact? A cotton dress, a linen dress, or a silk dress? So you can even do some tests without having a product itself to see which one should I choose.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one too. So taking a look at cotton versus silk versus linen, really amazing to see that changing to silk can have an 800% increase here. I believe silk was, or a linen was a little bit lower on that one.
Yeah, lower than cotton.
Lower than cotton, which is fantastic. So switching between materials can be another great way as a brand to be able to reduce the impact without necessarily overhauling your entire supply chain either.
Yeah, the type of transportation. If you fly your product, if it take the boat, What's the difference? And I love that part. You have all the origin, destination, you have the names of all the different port on the planet, and you can, if it's not there, you can enter it, and you can have the transportation mode. So it's really, really, really precise in knowing, the impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to take a look at that entire supply chain and figure out exactly where that impact's coming from so you can make the most of it.
Yes.
I think what's really interesting, and I've seen this a couple times with companies that we worked with, is how this actually factors back up into scope 3. So you're working on your product impact, you're working to decarbonize it and reduce the impact as much as possible. Well, what does that mean for your company as a whole? So I actually just took this the sample here of the baseline cotton T-shirt and just imagined what would it look like if you purchased 50,000 of these a year and resold them. When you take a look at the overall hotspot of that, you can see that like your scope 1 and 2 emissions, which lie typically within your offices and facilities, your fleet, your equipment, only make up about 2% of your overall emissions. But you can actually dive into, if I can find it here, the purchase goods and services here, and take a look at this baseline cotton T-shirt, and 50,000 units would equal about 10% of your impact just for one unit. I don't think that's too realistic.
Yeah, sorry, one SKU. I was you said, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just for one SKU. I don't think that's too unrealistic to expect as a brand for one of your best sellers. So where that becomes really interesting is if you actually take a look at scenarios. What if we were to swap that to organic cotton? What would that do to our overall emissions? And jumping into that, what you can actually see is, as soon as it loads up here, that it leads to a 3% reduction. So just a 10% of your total emissions being attributed to one SKU, and then making an adjustment between that leads to a 3% reduction, which, if you remember from the previous screen, is more than your entire scope 1 and 2. So really, really impactful to be able to focus on your products, focus on designing them the right way, and starting at the design stage and making the decisions that are right for your product, for your customers, and then seeing how that trickles up into your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions.
And yeah, and this information, again, you can share it to your supply chain. Your supplier, they want to know that. And the more they know, the more they're going to collaborate with you in getting better. Because I never, but maybe it exists, but everybody wants to do good, on the planet. It's just sometimes we're limited with sales and target sales and stuff like that, and it goes very, very fast. But to have this data, it's so important to share it, and then everybody gets involved, and that's how we have the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also figuring out how it plays into your sales too, right? Like sales is one of the biggest focuses on a company. If your customers are starting to ask you for this information, or you think it might benefit sales, it can have a huge impact on that side of things. We've worked with companies previously where they would have lost their biggest customer if they didn't have the information that they needed to be able to set targets, and now they have to figure out how they're going to meet those targets. And so it's going to become more and more important for you as a brand to get ahead of this, so you can start working with your suppliers, figure out how you're going to reduce your emissions, and really prove to your customers, to your shareholders, employees, anybody who is one of your stakeholders, how you're going to set targets and then also meet those as well.
Yes, 100%. And there's more and more government program that if you participate, you can have access to different, I don't know, how do you call that? Tax reductions or things like that. So you, I think in Canada, it's the net zero, just correct me, but a lot of the brands we're working with, they approach us with that. It's like, okay, we want to be part of that program. How can we do it? Okay, let's start somewhere. And this is a good way to start, to know. You need to know. We have to stop ignoring. I know that I've ignored for so many years. I used to be a buyer. I just wanted to make my sales and to squeeze my factory to have the best price, but we're not there anymore. It's completely changing. The apparel and textile industry and other industry as well, it's changing. We never did business that way. So how can you get ahead and not be caught and disappear? We're going to see a lot of the brands who are not doing anything right now. There's a big risk. It's inevitable. So I don't want to be scary, but I want to be a bit scary.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it is something to be aware of, right? Like if you're one of your biggest customers, or if your entire customer base starts saying tomorrow that, hey, we need to see this information, it's going to take some time to be able to start the initiative to be able to work towards this. So it's better to start sooner rather than later, and get ahead of it rather than fall behind.
Yeah, and start small. You don't have to go all in, and don't try to be perfect because we're not there yet. But do something. Get educated, get the information, get the training, and involve your team. I was mentioning that most of the time the sustainability department, it's one person. How come sustainability is not integrated in each department? You cannot change a business with the knowledge being just in one department. The knowledge has to be across the board, and you need to do that. And for that, again, you need data. You need to show the proof. It's true. We have a big impact. There's the number. And now what are we doing?
Absolutely.
Do either of you have any tips on, for those companies, how we can start integrating the sustainability data more into the organization so it's not as siloed within just the single sustainability person or team?
Well, when you're a buyer and you place an order with a supplier, you enter your in the system. Okay, this is a long sleeve T-shirt made from 50% polyester, 50% cotton, and long sleeve, the sizes, everything. Because when you do your sales, you need to be able to identify which product are doing better. But now we have to add to that description the country of origin, the water consumption. It's so if your team start at first, it's going to be more work. We have to take the time to do a little bit more work, but at the end, it's going to be automatic to enter the water consumption and the impact of this fabric, and you're going to have it in your system. And once it's in the system, you just have to check the box if it applies or not, or choose the option that is for the product. So it's going to be through education, but it's going to be into the daily task of entering the data. And the more people will see it in your team, well, it's going to become easier. It's going to become second nature. So that's why data is important. Like water consumption or energy consumption or type of fabric and their impact, and the time it takes to decompose and stuff like that. It should be like a type of color or sleeve length, or when you make clothes, everything about a fabric that peels or not. So you should know that a fabric that takes more water or not. We should know it naturally.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it is just one of those other like differentiating factors, right? Like it's the style, the price. I think sustainability factors into that as well, and I think consumers are starting to definitely push that way. I know in Maya's comment, it's absolutely true that there has been a bit of a decline over the last few years here, but I think it's still very important to a large portion of that consumer base. And so not doing anything today poses a huge risk that you're going to lose a big chunk of that customer base.
Yes, 100%.
And I know we've talked a little bit about looking at other metrics like water and not just carbon. But Ben, maybe you could share a little bit too how the Arbor platform can be used to look at other indicators as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're able to measure a bunch of different indicators, is what we call them, within the Arbor platform. And so these can be anything from emissions to water, land use. There's a ton of different things you should be taking into account when you're taking a look at a product. But a lot of the times that can be very overwhelming to take a look at if you're just getting started. So sometimes it's better to take a look at one or two of these different indicators that kind of indicate how your product is progressing or where it sits today to make decisions based off of it. But then long-term objectives should really be to take a look at the product holistically. And Miriam, I know that we were talking before this, also take into account different things like the social portions of that as well, long-term, which is a difficult and much larger conversation.
Yeah, that I would love, I know we're going to talk about that more and more, because we have to find a way to measure social, the way your apparel makers are treated. And is there some, like, if a factory is audited and certified, can you enter it, and does it have a value? It's the value. What value do you give to that notion? That's what we have to figure out. But I know it's going to go there. I know, because the factories, and I work with overseas factory, the good factories, and I say good like that because even the good factory, they still have they work 6 days a week, because that's the law in that country. Working 6 days a week, it's ethical, but let's hope it's going to go somewhere else. But the factories who are doing the right thing, they want to be out there, so they will want to be measured, in that way. So is there partnership with different audit company that could happen to help create that? But if we start measuring social and circularity more and more as well, if I have 20% of the clothes I'm selling that are secondhand from my own brand, what's the impact of that? That's huge, because you're not manufacturing anything new. You do have those different material, but you did not produce it in a new way. You've been reusing it. So that's why calculation for circularity will be super important as well.
And we have some really good questions in the chat. So first question is, in the current reality that shows a massive decline in the focus or relevance of sustainability within a large part of the industry, how can we reframe sustainability and circularity?
Yeah, I think we're trying to figure that out right now. I like right now to focus a lot on circularity. So at first, am I making too many units? We need to look at how much do I produce to sell, and so what does that look like? But let's use transparency. We have to be transparent. So even if you're not there yet, show the customer that, hey, it's all 100% polyester. Polyester has the most impact, but we do this, and this for now. But the consumer knows. I think the consumer should be able to make a clear decision with all the information. That's super important. So but yeah, I think people are tired of hearing sustainability. Circularity is still not too bad still, but I think, yeah, we don't want to use those words. We want to be able to just feel safe to buy clothes and to know that it's a good thing. But yeah, it's a big challenge. I don't know if I answered the question. Sorry if I don't. But yeah, we're trying very hard to make that happen, but we need more people to join.
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, from what I've seen in the industry, not only in apparel but in other industries as well, is got to make it about the numbers too. I'm a bit of a numbers guy, so maybe I see that across the board. But really figuring out how is it going to move the needle for your organization in terms of other numbers as well. What's it going to help with across those other different stakeholder channels? Across like your customers is going to boost sales, and being able to measure that and communicate that across the organization is really, really important.
Yeah, and we have to stop seeing sustainability as an expense, but more as an investment. In the long term, sustainability is durable. If you decrease the amount of new resources that you use, then you use resources that are already there, so it decreases the price of your material, but it's an investment. But we are in that place where it's kind of uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable right now, so we have to go through that phase to
Mhm.
have more fun after.
Definitely. And then, can supplier sales teams use carbon or water footprint data to stand out in RFPs or bids or any other way in the market?
Yeah, this is definitely a great way to use this information. For any of the companies who currently have science-based targets, a lot of the time they're asking for this information. For any of the companies, a lot of the governmental organizations are starting to ask for this information. So great way to use it in RFPs. And a lot of the larger organizations as well, like the Walmarts and Amazons of the world, they're starting to put in programs like Project Gigaton, and Amazon has one as well, to start uh, collecting this information from the suppliers and mandating this. So being able to provide that information and put your best foot forward there to show not only that your products may be less than the average, but also what your plan is to be able to reduce that over time so that you can help them meet their targets is going to go a huge way. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Miriam.
No, I think you said it all. It's super important. The data is important for everyone. Every stakeholder in your industry, everyone needs it. So yes, you can use it.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said before too, Miriam, about if you're not doing it, it is a risk, right? Like at least having the visibility into the information, maybe you're using polyester and everything, at least having the facts so that from there you can make decisions no matter what they are based on your current economic landscape.
Yeah, and if you do have your consumers say, "Hey, that we don't want that anymore," so now you have the power to go to this decision maker and say, "Our consumer, they don't want that anymore." So that's when they got the it goes up to the decision makers, and the finance departments. So if you can show them that it's a change is needed, that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And then last question for now, feel free if there's any other ones to just drop them in the chat. But they said this may have been covered earlier, but for recycled polyester and other synthetic fibers, microplastic shedding is higher than virgin polyester. Is this something that's taken into account in the Arbor platform?
That is an excellent question, and that's one of those other sort of aspects that you need to take a look at long term, but can be a little bit overwhelming when you're taking a look at just the carbon data. So that's something that we can absolutely take into account. Typically, for most of our customers, we're actually not showing that right now. So I think that's an excellent suggestion to include that as part of the overall profile of that product and of that material to help brands make informed decisions. But it's absolutely something that we can show through our platform through some of the other indicators that are in there.
Mm-hmm. That's why the difference was not that big comparing to cotton, is that there's like recycled polyester is not that good, so we have to it's just we feel that, oh, it's recycled, so you're like, okay, I'm doing something good. But no, when you see it with the software, it's no. But yes, it can be taken into account. Sorry, just adding. Thank you for the question. Great questions.
Yeah.
Great questions.
Yeah.
And then I think one more question I had is, I know we've talked a lot today about supplier data, and I know that it's often a barrier to get suppliers to provide data. And so what approaches have you guys seen that work best to incentivize these suppliers and get them to co-invest in decarbonization?
I think ideally you showcase your like 5 to 10 year plan, saying that's where we're going. Are you going to jump on board with us? If you want to, this is what we will have to target, without saying that, okay, I'm not doing business with you anymore overnight, but preparing them, telling them we're going there. Here's some tools, sharing the tools. We're way past the old way of doing, especially in my industry, to keep everything secret, to have the best product. Everything is out there. So collaboration, co-petitions, we say, like cooperation and competition has to be used more, but prepare them. We're going there. This is the data we have. If you want some for yourself, because if your supplier start using software and have data, it's going to be easier for them, it's going to be easier for you, and it's going to be easier for the consumer. Everybody's winning. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think like a lot of the suppliers are in the same position that the brands are too, right? They're trying to figure out even how they start, and it can be very, very overwhelming when they have so many different types of requests. So I think a huge part of it is also making it easy for them to collaborate. And ideally, you want to be collaborating with your brands before competing, but if they're not willing to collaborate, then sometimes competition is necessary.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So thank you so much, Ben and Miriam.
guys.
Conversation. I thought it was super interesting. And yeah, we'll send out a recording to all the attendees as well in case you missed any of it. Ben, if you just want to go to the next slide here.
Yes.
If you want to scan the QR code, it'll take you to Miriam and Ben's websites, but of course, reach out to them on LinkedIn. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add on that note.
Well, thank you so much for having me, on this webinar, and thank you for what you're doing. It helps a lot. I'm so happy we worked together, and thank you for everybody who attended, and great questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Miriam, for joining today. It's always amazing to have somebody like you who's so much deep industry expertise to talk to. So really enjoyed it, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you. Bye, guys.